Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another installment of the Comics Pals Book Club, voted by you, the patrons, every month. And this month, we have the pleasure of reading Blacksad by Juan Diaz Canales and Juanjo Guarnido. If you like what you hear here, you can take a look at our back catalog for other book clubs. Last month, we covered off on House and Powers of X, which was a particularly fun discussion. Feel free to keep up to date with us by subscribing to us on YouTube or the podcast service of your choice. Follow us on all socials at the Comics Pals, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. Join us live for our main show every Saturday at 10:15 EST on Twitch and YouTube, as well as Thursdays 6 p.m. EST for Pals Polls, where we'll go over the hottest books that week, with one of them being your selection. So definitely follow us on Twitter to get a chance to vote on that.
Those
And
times
last,
are in AM. Those are
But-
AM times. AM.
Thursdays is
10:15
PM. Oh,
Yeah.
6 p.m., 10 a.m. for if you want to further support the show and help guide some of this conversation similar to the one we're about to have now, you can join us on Patreon, where for as little as $3 a month, you get access to weekly newsletters, an exclusive show, Palling Around, as well as a first look into all of the new content that we're trying to put out. Okay. I've babbled enough.
It was good. It's a good job.
Straight into it.
Yeah, boy. Trying to quick and efficient. So for Blacksad, the book that we're reading, and I actually have it in physical for those of you who know me.
Wow.
I'm usually a digital reader, but I've actually had this since Comic-Con 2019, and I got it signed.
Ooh, by who? Blacksad himself?
Cool.
Oh, dang, can you not see it? Oh, there it is.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, dude, I was super hyped about this. I got a chance to talk to him for a little bit. It says, Para Marco, un abrazo. Oh, give me a hug.
For Marco, what does that mean?
I said it.
That's what that is. Abrazo.
That's what that is.
Jesus,
I'm a
Tyler.
real.
Abrazo, yeah.
I'm
you
a
gotta
bad
hug.
Puerto Rican. Shit. or
two
else my
Spanish-
Puerto Rican side of the family never hugged me.
Probably.
Never heard the word.
So Blacksad is a book published in France, actually. Both the writer and artist are in Spain, but they find a lot more success in the bande dessinée
On Dessiné.
market in France as well as Belgium. And so since then, they have 6 volumes out. This covers the first 3. So that is Somewhere Within the Shadows, Arctic Nation, and Red Soul, which we're going to talk about, collected here by Dark Horse today. And first impressions of the character, because I know Blacksad has other media outside of that. So curious if you guys have dabbled with that outside of the book, or if you guys have read the book, because this is my first time. I've always wanted to, and I'm glad I got a chance to.
Okay. For me, I'm familiar with Blacksad. I was a big fan of the in college, the iFanboy podcast. So I would pretty much listen to their show. I explicitly remember listening to a show where they were talking about Blacksad Amarillo when I was in my photography class, and I was in the not the red room, the developing room. And I had my headphones in, and they were talking about it, and I bought it right away. Did I read it? No. So this is my first time reading it, but I am familiar with the character. And it was always one of those things where I wanted to read it. But the to read pile gets a little big. So thank you to the patrons for giving me the excuse I finally needed to get into this.
I have read A Silent Hell, which is another Blacksad collection. And I played the Switch game, which I don't remember what it's called, but
Telltales, right?
Really?
Is it not Telltales? I could have sworn
no,
it
it's
was.
not. No, it's a European. I think it's like a university project or something. It's not Telltale.
Marco, you're thinking of the Fables Wolf. Yeah,
I am.
I
You're
thought
right.
Blacksad was a Telltale thing too.
Okay. Yeah.
Under the Skin. That's what it was called.
Yeah.
Okay.
They could have gone under the hood a little better.
Not good.
Because the Switch version was, how people are complaining about Pokemon Violet and how buggy and there was one time that uh I was in the middle of a cutscene and Blacksad's tie was just it was jumping all over the place. It was wild. And I couldn't make a game progressing decision because like there's a point in the game where you have to like go into Blacksad's mental space and you have to like connect words to put together the clues and stuff. I
Mm.
couldn't get there. And then when I did get there, I couldn't get the words together. They wouldn't match up and I couldn't click on them because the game was so glitchy and messed up. Um Apparently this was only on the Switch though. Because when I finally got to the end of the game, I was having a great time. The mystery is incredible. And the reviews of that game literally everywhere else are tremendous.
It's only got a
Mm.
65 Metacritic, which is like, eh,
I mean, for a third party game though,
yeah,
like
fair.
Take it, Sean.
I think I guess it would have been Kale. I think I was recommended this, or not recommended. I was tagged this on the old version of Pals Pulls where he had comics tag, and I liked it. If I remember correctly, like it was cool. You can always catch me with an anthropomorphic animal, and you know, but I remember being confused. Like I felt like I didn't really understand this world too well, and I think I was missing context from this. Not that like this adds context for
Mm.
why these animals can talk, but you really don't need that. That's irrelevant. But just context for this guy, Blacksad, and context for what kind of world we're living in. So for me, it was pretty cool to see this now after having read what I did. So I had just that little bit of context. This adds clarity to that, what I was lacking before.
What did
yeah,
you read before?
yeah.
Was it a Silent Hell?
I don't remember.
I was gonna ask. Okay. Do you feel like tonally it stays consistent?
Yeah.
Yeah, because so for listeners, this is a very much hard-boiled noir kind of setting and character. A lot of that gets driven by both the settings and the art. The first tale in particular, I thought of Tyler. You get an actress, a runaway writer, a murder plot. I'm like, oh, that's probably his jam.
Who told you?
And
Oh, you mean okay. Yep. Okay.
and I think it caught me off guard because I didn't know what to expect. And you open the first page of this first story where you see John Blacksad is staring at a corpse, and I had just finished when I read this. I had just finished having dinner. I was watching One Piece, which is super lighthearted and fun. And I first thing I flip over to is there's a murder and blood and a body on the table, and it took me a second to really get into it. How did you guys feel walking into this first story?
You're not used to seeing boobs,
You
right?
know what? No, no, especially not in that show.
I so this is my jam. You're right, Marco. Not even just like the fact that it's like 1950s style New York noir. Like that alone is my jam. But like Sean, I'm a big like as a kid I was drawing anthropomorphic animals like all the time. My dad I think still has some
Yeah,
up in his
same.
office at work. So like being able to see all these different animals in it, I'm like, oh, that's also my jam. This is like if you took, peanut butter and you got it in my chocolate. You got a Reese's cup here, and it's good. So I was really into this. The cartooning work here is great. Is it predictable, the story? At least that first volume, kinda. Yeah.
Hmm.
I think the second volume gets a little less predictable, almost to its detriment. But that first volume, it's just like pure good noir goodness, and I liked everything about it. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was a silent hell, by the way, that I read. So it makes sense that it would have been Kale. But yeah, like this first you know especially the first story. Um, like Tyler said, quintessential noir, which I enjoyed. Um, I wished it was less predictable. I think the stories overall are quality. The last one I didn't love as much, but for the most part, I thought they were all great. What struck me most about this, beyond the story though, is how phenomenal the art is.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's what really did it for me here is this art. I think I saw that this was like from like the early to mid 2000s. Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
2001 is the first story, and then it's like every 2 years or so they've released.
I will say this, and I don't mind if this makes me sound stupid. I did not realize that at this time artists were doing this way, this good.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
In the sense that the only comics from that era that I really read are Marvel and DC, and they don't look like this. To me, this is like we see comics that look like this now and later on in the 2000s, but for me, for what I was reading, I never saw anything like this. So I was blown away that this even came from that time and was so amazing.
I think
Comics hadn't been invented yet.
yeah. Well, no, it's the U.S. and Western comics didn't start really taking European artists like they do now. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Europe.
And actually, they make
in its whole,
mention
yeah.
in the back matter, at least of this book, that he's of the same sort of school as I think it was Salvador LaRocca, and he was originally trying to get into Marvel UK, and so they've since followed that trajectory. But he didn't get in. He got into animation and decided to stick it out in European comics, and so he's continued to develop that style. I'm really glad you said that, Sean. I this from an art perspective, very clean lines, sometimes a little loose, and I think that adds to a lot of like the dynamics of the book. There's a lot of motion in this, and I think you're anthropomorphizing animals and at the same time giving them just this flexibility and ability to move in quick succession, and one that's hard for humans, and then two, you have to add in the anatomy of animals. uh, I thought that was super well done, especially for something like the even beyond Blacksad, like that gecko lizard guy, like creeping and slinking along. Loved it.
The one that really surprised me was there's there's the panel of the in the second volume where Weekly is watching the fox have sex with the chief's wife or whatever,
Yeah, yeah.
and you can they're obviously on flagrante, but you can see like this male character's backside, and he's got it's like a male human back,
Like the muscle structure.
but you could see the muscle structure that adds to like the tail. And I would that really impressed me.
Kale, if that impresses you, I got a whole bunch of websites I could show you.
Listen, I'm on
Oh my
Tumblr.
God.
I'm on Tumblr. I don't need your websites,
That's
my
true.
friend.
That's true. You already know. Yeah.
I don't need your trash. I have quality.
That's not what I said.
um, and just to summarize the first volume here, it's a pretty simple story. You have a murdered actress. The writer has gone missing, and Blacksad is tasked to potentially find this person because they are the last known contact. And he had previous a relationship with this actress, and it ultimately leads to this sort of uh, what is he? He's like a CEO corporate guy, and I think that was one thing of the first volume that I didn't buy. Like I could see sort of the machinations working, and the art really grounded me and held me through some of that. But when we get to that sort of climax in the story, I it felt dissonant to what was being built up. And I don't know if you guys felt something like that.
I think that at first I felt like that,
Mm.
but then for some reason I started like this started reminding me of the show Luther with Idris Elba, and I started to see Blacksad as Luther, and that this world was like that type of world where people are almost inherently corrupt, and there are people who are mad about that, but there are people who are mad about it, but they want to do something about it, and that corrupts them too, which is what happens here. And for some reason, that really clicked everything for me.
The police chief, the commissioner, the German
Right.
Shepherd commissioner or whatever, he says, and I actually screenshotted this. He was like, I have a problem with the way the world works. And in the next panel, he says, I'm naive. And it really just that sat with me.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Kale, what was it like seeing your dog in a comic?
I draw my dog all the time.
Okay, all right,
Into his comics.
Yeah.
got it.
That's interesting. That line felt a little empty to me.
Oh,
I and that in particular, like the moment he said, it's a plain sentence of I am naive, and I'm like, you're sort of calling attention to it, and I think the conversation that led up to it made a lot of sense. He's like, Blacksad, I'll cover for you if you need to do what you need to do in order to get rid of this person in the world because he's shitty. And then he says, all right, I am naive. And then the book closes with them discussing whether or not their conscience is clean because of it. And he then says he worries for his consciousness and his soul because he's allowing Blacksad to go ahead and wanton execute somebody just because they are evil versus work through the legal system. That didn't sit with me because if he's that idealistic, then I would assume he would, and maybe this is me pulling from superhero comics, but like I would assume he would fight to the end to bring him by the book.
I think that's why he let Blacksad do what he did, though, because the book in this world, because this CEO or whatever is so corrupt and the world is so corrupt, he says, he does what he does because Blacksad is the person that can pull this off and he can't. So even if Blacksad's reasoning isn't like 100%, Blacksad's the one that can get it done.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think he's a realist.
Yeah.
It's he understands where he is on the food chain of this world, and knows who can get around it. And Blacksad's that guy.
It's the grittier version of Batman and Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I also think he's saying, I wish that the world could be different than this. Like, I wish my way worked. I wish just locking this dude up would solve this problem, but I know it won't. So the world doesn't really benefit from people like me. It benefits from people like you.
So I'll send you out to do the task at that point. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. That first volume is pretty straight to the point. It cleans it pretty nicely, and I liked it as an intro because I think the subsequent story, the Arctic Nation, gets if it provides the first sort of complication, and introduces a lot of social challenges. So this is obviously in the 40s, 50s. We don't get a clear time, but we understand that within this world, there is a white supremacist. There exists a white supremacist organization, and they exist in this town called the Line, and he's not pitted against it necessarily. Blacksad, he is there to solve a missing child case that he gets called upon. How did you guys feel about the inclusion? And later on, he continues to sort of get political and was it Canales starts to talk about his own ideology a bit later. But how did you guys feel about that inclusion in this story?
Thought it was a little weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not really like it's not particularly nuanced.
Hmm.
And then it's weird that like the what I felt or what I read as like an analog group for Black Panthers or something like that.
Yeah.
Like they're actually also dicks. Um, which I don't understand where this creative team is coming from presenting them that way, juxtaposed with the white supremacists who are, you know, just that.
Hmm.
So I thought that was a little odd. The overall story was all right, but quite frankly, I almost don't even feel like you needed the white supremacist race angle. I'm not like if you really pick it apart, it was about a guy who well, I guess it was a revenge story because he was a racist. But you could have told that same story without race being involved. And so I'm not saying race shouldn't have been here. It's just that I don't ever feel like it was dealt with in a nuanced way enough to justify the fact that it was used.
I mean, it's a very
One,
American way to go about race, you know, specifically an analog for the Black Panthers and the KKK, really. So
Yeah.
both extremes, you know, any way you look at it, on either side of it. And the creators are Spanish, right? They're from Spain. Am I right,
yeah.
Marco?
Yep.
So it is interesting seeing somebody not American tackle that. So maybe that's why it's so very black. I mean, black and white, but yeah, black and white.
Yeah.
It's not as
Yeah.
nuanced in a way. I think it's more really a story of socioeconomic issues.
There's a lot more nuance in almost everything else.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. The whole KKK thing was almost caricature, I think, in
Hmm.
some ways. I think it served a plot device later on, the climactic air hangar scene, because it allowed costumes and stuff. So it served a point there. But like we only get like one scene with the Black Claws gang, you know, like
Right.
so they seemed kind of irrelevant to the story. But I guess maybe it was, you know, I got to show both sides sort of thing. Which I've never been a fan of, you know, like both sidesing it. But again, I'm not a European looking in on, you know, 1950. I think it's pretty solidly within the 1950s.
Yeah.
It's post-war,
Yeah.
but pre-Cold War, so it's right there. So yeah, it's interesting. I didn't really view it as that. I viewed it more as like, you know, like the rich versus the poor sort of thing that was a little more heavy-handed and honestly a little more nuanced in that sense. But I think it did lend a good beat when it comes to Blacksad's character design, where he's a tuxedo cat, and he has black and white on him, so he kind of fits into that gray area that the book places him in morality wise.
Uh,
I think that's sort of well in terms of him being like a, you know, sort of a street cat. I
Yeah.
can sort of see what you're saying. But for me, a lot of the race stuff sort of falls off when, you know, only the white animals are white. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
It's a literal color thing, not a species thing.
yeah, yeah. Like
Oh.
it doesn't,
yeah.
the analogy doesn't follow through. You know what I mean? Like, if it were like birds against everybody else or
Well,
reptiles against everybody else, I could, you
it's
know, I
funny
could,
because we got that in the first volume, the lizard bar, you know, the
That's
reptile
right.
bar. Like, so we
yeah, yeah,
know all of a certain species does hang together in, you know, a
yeah.
gang style. So, sure, yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's just an issue with, like, why tackle that when you have all these different species? Like, there's a
It was
better way of
unnecessary.
tackling it.
And there were a lot of elements of that in the video game too that I very much was like, why? Why? Not that, you know, obviously not that I like have a problem with the idea that Blacksad is a black a black character. He's clearly not a black man, but a black character. But like, you know, he's just a black cat. What am I supposed to do with that? You know?
What you just said is why, like, look, I know it's comics. At the end of the day, we're not supposed to take it too seriously, but realistically, like, this shit is dumb as hell, and it trivializes legitimate racial issues because the trials of a black human don't equate to the trials of a black cat,
Yeah.
and like, you're telling me that all black animals experienced racism and all white animals didn't. So there are some cats that are black and some cats that are white, and they're treated differently,
Yeah.
and they're cool with that.
Yeah.
It quite literally makes it a black and white issue. Like, what about
Right.
gray animals? What about brown and black animals? You know, like,
Well, yeah, Wheatley is he's like
He's a
a
weasel.
ferret, and he's like orange, like orange and white.
But he's not pure, the pure white hair, and so therefore he's also
it's
lumped
hard
in.
to deal with purity in terms of race when nobody is the same animal. Is my
Yeah.
issue.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like by species you categorize.
Yeah.
You what is it? You're able, you segregate by the species at that point.
Yeah, I wanted to see some real segregation of this.
But I think it's interesting that they would want to make that a point, considering they're outside looking in. The thought is probably like, oh yeah, that's the shit that they probably deal with. It's like, let's just toss it in there because that'll make it more appealing or more familiar for people.
I mean, yeah, I can't imagine that the idea is let's toss it in there because it's, it is incredibly relevant for the time period. But I can see how, if you're not really thinking about it, the metaphor works. But, if you think about it, it loses a lot.
I think because the book, it takes itself so seriously as well, that affects and
Yeah.
impacts how you're reading it. Because that was I think the blocker coming in was, he's like, they're very much serious about this. This is all, a life or death situation. These are real characters as much as they can be, and so you have to really be careful with how you're engaged with them, how you're talking with them, because what see that'd be a colored cat there, Tyler.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I wonder what his opinion is on this.
It's just a baby. He doesn't have an opinion.
That aside, would you guys feel like did this mystery play out better for you than the previous story?
No, I didn't like this one.
Really?
I found it very convoluted.
Say more.
Especially at the end.
Once
it gets to, like,
up to
twist,
the end,
twist,
I was pretty into it.
Same. Yep.
I I had a lot of trouble keeping track of who the bad guys were. You had the chief, and then you had the
Carup is the police chief.
okay,
Huck is the leader.
the fox. Yeah.
And Oldsmill is the tiger guy.
Right. I had trouble keeping track of them, and then they would go to someone's house, but all the houses look the same.
What are you trying to say, Kayla? That all white animals look alike?
Ay, boy.
No, I'm trying to say all the houses look the same.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
He's housest.
So they would go somewhere, and I couldn't tell where they were. And then they get to the end where they're explaining the plot, and it's this weird incest story that just, like, after a certain point you're reading it, you're going, but why? You could have just not done this.
I think it to Sean's earlier point about like not having to include race, it could have just been a revenge story about, well, you kicked my mother out and I'm mad at you about that and I want to kill you for that. Like that still works in within this structure perfectly. And I think when she breaks down, like there's the scene where Blacksad walks up to her name was not Dina, just walks up and rips her
Yo, that was
shirt open.
uncalled for.
Yeah,
At the funeral,
That was
bro.
wild.
and like, we didn't have context into why yet until he started to explain, and then you're like, oh, I didn't make this connection previously. I didn't see the white patch earlier on Dina, and I didn't realize how that tied into it. So that felt very sort of shoehorned in.
Well, and also storyline wise, like we had like some of the KKK members weren't even pure white. They were like a cheetah, which was like a little yellow, you know? So like even if I had seen that Dina had a brown patch on her, I would not have assumed that that tracks with their race that she's mixed. Like also I don't think that's how animals work. But the idea of mixed race with animals does not exist, sure, but yeah, I was like really into that story until that. Like if they had revealed the wife is the one who killed Huck, fine. I get it. That's enough for me. But instead it's this weird incest gay family
Whoa.
twist.
Wait,
Wait,
He's
what?
gay?
Whoa.
wait, who was gay?
Oh, okay. So that's
Oh.
actually where my issue was. I thought that Dina and the mom were a couple at first, and then they twist again, like, oh, this is actually my sister.
Right.
And I was like, whoa, there's too much,
Okay.
too much
But
twisting.
they
going
weren't
on.
together.
No,
But I
he
thought it was like a
thought-
love thing, like you can't touch me for
Okay.
this.
I
And he
see.
even alludes to it before. It's like,
Right.
oh, you won't let me be touched by you. So I was very confused about the wife of the situation. It was
There was also no incest, I don't think.
no,
'cause
she wouldn't
didn't-
let him
they
touch
didn't.
her. Yeah.
Right.
Because of
Yeah.
Supposedly.
I think.
Well,
I
he
think
was
she
too
stands
busy
her ground.
apparently molesting children. So,
Well,
But was
Yeah.
that real?
dude, I
That-
don't know.
that-
There was
he
a
was
lot
framed.
of shit going
He,
on.
he was framed for it, just and from the text he was framed for it is what I got out.
Right.
yeah. Okay.
Wild set of twists in that.
There's just too many things going on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. It's very convoluted, very complicated. And I just like it wasn't like as predictable as the first one was. This one is the complete opposite direction.
There's nothing that could prepare you for the twist.
And
Not even us telling you about it.
I think it was also poor execution to just have Jezebel just ramble at the end. Like we didn't get as many of the reveals as we probably could have, and we got in maybe the first story. It was at that point the end was just exposition. Like
I mean,
this is why
that's-
it happened.
That's kind of a
That's
Norn thing.
mystery though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Trope.
you know, that's the locked room trope. Like the detective walks in and rambles for a second and tells you who did it, how they did it, and why. And then somebody confesses and you get their end of the story.
Sure.
Gotta say though, still look damn good.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Like
Gorgeous
even
book.
even that this is the weakest of them for me anyway.
Yeah.
I did not have a bad time reading it.
I think something that Canales does well is he paces the story really effectively. And because we have this larger format of book, it allows Juanjo to be able to show more. You get more story in smaller panel progression, and that feels like it paces the story really, really well. So even though there are things that like a lot happens in this, there's a lot of characters, there's a lot of literal moving pieces. You still get a well-told story in I think 50, 60 something pages, because you have that extra real estate. Where I think it would be cramped if you had a smaller, was it 8x12 comic? I think you would be short-ended by that format. Then
It's also the benefit of the European model for bande dessinée as well. It's just that's how they do it. These come out for 2 years, so this guy, I can't imagine this was an easy thing to work on for 2 years. Each of these stories, but they can sort of, to a degree, they can take their time and put it together and really put love and care in it. And so by that, you know, by because of that, it can be a little bit longer. It can be a little bit better.
you have the space.
Mhm.
The one thing that did bother me was there was an inclusion of strange fruit from the radio that started to play, and for whatever reason that just like rubbed me the wrong way because I think it tried to add like a point to the race element that at that end we didn't need. Like we got what the answer was. We understood, and now we're continuing to hammer home. Um, and it was the Abil Merilpal version, which was interesting.
Marco, I typically skip through any kind of music in comics. I hate it.
Yeah.
Because I can't, especially if I don't know the song, like I won't hear it correctly and I just skip past it. What's the song about? Is it about mixed race relations?
Oh, Strange Fruit. So Strange Fruit is about lynching.
Oh boy. Okay.
There
I thought it
are
was about the
strange
animals.
fruit
Okay.
from the hanging from the trees, and it's
Yes. Yes.
a woman lamenting about it, and the purpose of the song is to be sort of like crying, and so you're hearing this sort of wailing, and that's the mood that gets brought.
Lovely.
Which is why I'm like, what the like? Yeah, okay, it's rubbing me the wrong way.
Listen,
What the
cheery.
fuck's going on here?
It's funny how we talk about how I guess dark the second volume is, but it also introduces Weekly, who is the goofy character of the book.
Yeah,
This
he's
weird
fun.
sidekick who's kind of pervy, actually very
Smelly
pervy.
too.
What
I
was
thought
that,
that
Sean?
was a silly inclusion.
But
Sean,
we
what
can
was it?
we can start calling Marco weekly now, right? Like,
Yeah, sure.
I
Yeah.
shower.
Weekly?
Wow.
What is this attack on my person?
Wow.
For is Weekly in any subsequent volumes? Sean, was he in that one?
think
I
so.
don't recall.
He's in
I
he's in
think
volume
he
3.
was.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
in volume 3.
Yeah.
He was in the game too.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, they seem to have
And
merch for him too. So I think he becomes a pretty permanent
Yeah.
character going forward.
cool. I did like him. And speaking of volume 3, the Red Scare, we seemingly jump time because, or at least the contents of which this chapter or this volume covers is more so nuclear holocaust, the preamble to the Cold War, specifically the Red Scare. And so I thought it was interesting that here are these writers who are coming in, or this writer who is coming in and like now espousing more about his leftist ideology. And you get the communists here, you get artists and poets, and they're all in not in a commune, but they're all together, and they're thinkers. And I thought it was an interesting place to put Blacksad because he is very just direct and pragmatic, and uh, it was said earlier, realist. How did you guys like this setting as opposed to some of the others we'd been introduced to at that point?
This feels like, like the Hollywood blacklist, like the actual Hollywood blacklist. And I kind of I don't want to say like the
HUAC.
era. I don't want to say I like the era, but I that is a very thing that very very much interests me. So that taking part, kind of, I guess, translating that into this world, I was into. I didn't expect him to really go that deep into the. At the beginning, it seems like he's going deep into like leftist communist ideology, and then they just give up like a third of the way through the book, in terms of like what it means, and maybe Blacksad being a part of it. It's very surface level, and it really more used as a plot device to push this whole The guy playing the cock is pretty much McCarthy. Um,
Mhm.
so, I mean, McCarthy was a cock, so that tracks.
Great big one,
Yeah, big cock.
just like this guy.
So seeing that in it, I was like, all right, that's cool. I like how that tracks. He's a little too like him putting people in a bunker. Like I don't know if that was real, but I thought that was fine. I liked the third volume more than the second. I think the first one's still my favorite, but yeah, I kind of liked the change of pace too and the change of location. I think it was necessary, especially if they go back into they go back to the city in following volumes. I think going to like Vegas and feels more West Coasty. Kind of gives it a breath of fresh air. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like he's progressing east to west.
Yeah. Yep. And especially it's a clear follow up too from the Cotton's request at the end of volume 2. The blind
Yeah.
magpie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just go to Vegas for me. And like then volume 3 we're in Vegas. I'm like, "Oh, okay. They did that. All right."
Actually, speaking of which, it was kind of like a mole because he was in the bar in the second volume and he was black, but he was blind, so he couldn't see, and they like made fun of him for that.
You couldn't
But
see race, Marco.
He's a bird.
no, but he was like in this weird place because he would operate there, and I couldn't tell if he was some sort of informant or something.
He seemed like an informant that was just making money off of anyone really that he could. Yeah.
I guess because he couldn't see. Yeah.
Man of circumstance.
I had fun with this last one. The one of the main characters in this story, Otto Lieber, is a renowned scientist who has seemingly defected to the U.S. and is now on the ringing the bell for nuclear peace. And for any listeners, I think we talked about it, or I talked about it, but nuclear holocaust is a something that worries me greatly, and you can check that out on Paling Around. But because that was the setting, I was like immediately drawn to this story and to that character, because when it gets revealed later on that he was a potential Nazi sympathizer, it raised a question for something like an Albert Einstein, like a Heisenberg, where those people were brought in to work on the H bomb, to the Manhattan Project. And the thing that popped in my head was, how redeemable do these scientists become as people for what they do and who they associate with?
Can I just ask Sean what's so funny about Marco being?
What happened?
Marco mentions he's afraid of nuclear holocaust, and Sean just breaks.
Oh man,
It
I'm
has
Did we
been
not
for a
talk
good
about that on
30
the Paling
seconds.
Around?
No, you didn't.
Did
At
we?
least not. At least not one that I've been on.
I don't remember you talking about that either, Marco.
He said, and he said it so nonchalantly. He was like, "Listen, listeners will remember the conversation." Like he had the conversation with the listeners. And then I thought, "Oh, okay. By pal around, surely he means the newsletter." But then I went, "But that's not the name of the newsletter."
No, we did like a thing on like conspiracies, and I could have sworn I brought it up.
I was very focused on Sean's stuff during that episode.
I'm sorry. I was just
He had a case of the giggles. It's fine, Sean.
you just sounded so confident. I'm looking at Gail, and Gail doesn't know what the fuck.
Guys, stop making me
Oh,
laugh.
man,
You're
carry
you're
on.
waking
I'm
the
sorry.
Kitten, man. Jeez.
Oh, I did. I posed the question.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, what was the question?
Man, Sean just laughs in the face of mutual assured destruction.
Oh man.
One of the characters, Otto Lieber, he's the turtle guy. No, he's
Oh,
the
the
owl.
owl,
He's the,
right?
he's,
The
the,
owl.
he's the hooter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an analogy for like an Einstein for Heisenberg coming over from Germany, and the question there is, how redeemable? Damn, dude.
Go on.
He
Go
got
on.
gas by the laughing gas.
How redeemable a character is he, knowing his past, and being in confrontation with one of the other characters, um, Litvack, who was a seemingly a Jewish prisoner.
I go ahead, Sean. Were you gonna say something, Sean?
I was gonna say, first of all, I love that character. Um, I liked I liked the fact that he was, first of all, I love owls. So I like that. But I
New
like the
news.
fact that um, he sort of turn his life around or whatever. And I was all into his character and stuff. And then I don't know, I felt towards the end it tied into something that maybe it's just me, but I just didn't care about as much. The idea that he was sending these, you know, H bomb codes or whatever, or the way to
Yeah.
design them. And I was just like, what is this? Like, I don't know. I just didn't, that felt so crazy random to me. I guess I wasn't reading what you guys were reading, in the sense that it seems like you guys got a lot more out of this than I did. So when I got to that, I was just like, I didn't even realize this was that kind of story. Like, I didn't realize that this was, that he was going to be defecting and all that. I didn't see that coming.
Because the I think it was Litvack who tells him that the only way to ensure that the world is safe is to make sure that the U.S. is not the only one with nuclear arms. And so the answer is, well, Russia should also have them because they are also a world power. And the only way to ensure that everybody is safe is to, well, more than just one country should own or have control over nuclear armament.
Didn't he learn anything? I guess maybe that's the point of the story. But go ahead, Kale.
Well, so in the aquarium scene, uh, he basically sort of he realizes, he tells Blacksad, "This is what I've done," and then I think he realizes, "Oh shit, I'm sending Russia nuclear codes, like,
Right.
and now there's nothing I can do," and that's what sets Blacksad off to go find the paintings.
Yeah, he like snaps, he like awakens.
Kind of a side note. The fish are just normal fish in this world?
Great question.
It's a good question.
Great question.
This is like Mickey owning a dog, even though his best friend's a dog. Like, what is Pluto, guys? I don't know what's going on there. Like, are the fish just
Yeah, you
not
do.
sentient? I don't know. That jumped out to me. I had to think about the logistics of this world. I thought
Yeah.
the what was his name? Laszlo, the baboon guy. Maybe he was like a macaque monkey or something like that. But he was like a Holocaust survivor who literally hunts, ex-former Nazis. I was like, yeah, I want to know more about that guy,
Yeah.
But also I was like, how did the Holocaust work in this world? I mean, they didn't really tackle race relations that well. I'm not sure I really want to see them tackle that one, but
I was afraid that it was going
Yeah.
down that road.
I'm glad it didn't. I mean, yeah, glad it didn't.
best
I
not to
don't
think too
know.
much about it.
For me, at this point, I'm like, I kind of miss the more not necessarily straightforward, but the more down to earth detective stuff. I just feel like this book struggles when it's trying to add a layer of like our real life horrific stuff to it. It doesn't seem to have a great understanding of that stuff, or it's not trying to be nuanced, so it comes across as odd, really.
Obtuse.
Instead of it being a recounting of history, it's more of somebody who watched somebody recount history recounting it. Does that make sense?
It's somebody that wants to use the setting,
Sure.
but not totally knowing what to do with it.
Like it
Right.
did feel like, not to sound othering or whatever, but it did feel like somebody who was non-American writing about American history.
Yeah.
That can be nuanced and has been nuanced, and I've read many nuanced takes on this, especially in noir fiction, where it kind of gets muddied a bit in this. But again, the art does a really good job at making me not care.
Yeah, it got to a certain point where not that I was wholly skipping over the words, but man, when they started talking about Blacksad having to go, you know, hunt down nuclear codes or whatever, I was like, I I'm here for the detective, man. I don't need another Batman story. That's not what I came here for.
Yeah, I was there for him stopping the alligator guy, who was wearing alligator boots. So,
Boots,
oh boy,
yeah.
real Ed Gein situation going on. But yeah, like that's the stuff I was enjoying. When he saves the owl from the car and explodes.
Yeah, yeah.
The guy's giving that poor dude truth serum and he dies. Like that's
That was crazy.
Yeah.
they were like, oops, paperwork. But like that's the stuff I enjoyed.
Also, I the so the love interest in this one is called Alma Mayer, and she's a writer. Uh, in the first couple of pages, when Blacksad goes to the school or whatever to see the owl for the first time, there's a great big statue that says Alma Mater. And I went,
Mm,
surely this is going to have something to do with it. That's got to be.
Nope,
No,
same.
not at
that is
all.
just a
Right.
statue of an alma mater.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. I was like, oh, hmm.
Also, like Niagara Falls ain't that special. Let's be real.
It's not, dude.
I can see how you would be a little jaded about
Yeah,
that.
I might have. I might have some opinions.
It's overrated. Um, that is a shame. This one was probably my favorite. I think because it got into that larger, like it moved the scope away from the ground for a hot second. And I don't know what the subsequent story is about necessarily, but I like that the progression was small and local, and then larger. That felt like a good just palate cleanse for what I'd read in the previous two chapters or volumes of this. So I had a good time.
I appreciated the ambition of it.
Mm.
I like the fact that it did see him traveling, moving a little bit, but I just felt like the actual the story itself, it's just a little too big for its britches. Maybe I don't know. It just didn't feel. It doesn't feel I think I think there's some James Bond here,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't be surprised if some of the inspiration is James Bond. And if you look at it from that lens, yeah, sure. Um, but I feel like this comic book wants to say deep, or it like wants to talk about deep political issues, but it doesn't know how. Whereas in my mind, and I am not a James Bond expert, but in my mind, a lot are really about James Bond doing cool stuff and being with hot women,
Hmm.
not so much about actually tackling real issues in a real way. Is that accurate?
Like for me, as much as I love that, like post-war, early Hollywood area, pre-Cold War, I honestly would have maybe preferred Volume 3 being in Las Vegas the entire time. Like a
Fair.
nice noir book in Vegas, like that. I mean, sure, that's been done a bazillion times, but with anteaters, no. So,
The settings there. I to that actually, I think a lot of what this book is, a lot of what these stories are they've been done or can potentially be done better, but the differentiator is really just the fact that they're anthropomorphized animals and that feels novel. And I don't think that's a knock. Actually, no, that's kind of a knock on the writing because I think you can do the same thing and there could be a scenario where it can be executed better, but because of the art, it carries a lot of it.
I don't know. I mean, even if the beats are predictable, like the story still takes you on a ride. It's still
Yeah.
an original story. So, I think it's fine.
yeah, it's still solid noir mystery,
Yeah.
you know.
I don't come away from this like, gosh, I would never want to see any more of this. I'm glad I read it, despite the fact that I didn't come away like, wow, mind blown by how good it was.
Yeah.
I would be open to more. especially if and having read at least the first story in I guess the next volume, that one is in New Orleans and it's
Oh,
much
okay.
more down to earth, much more reminiscent of the first story we got here.
If
So
I yeah, if I
if
recall correctly, the whole volume, the whole book is a story too.
okay,
It's not
Oh, is
just
it?
three parts. If I recall correctly.
And I
Mm.
believe there's a new one that came out last year in 2022, which I believe was part one of a bigger story. So
Yeah,
yeah.
they all fall down, it looks
Yep.
like. Um, yeah, that was actually gonna be one of my closing questions. Would you continue? Would you be hungry enough from this to want to read subsequent stories? I know Sean, you've already read the next one, but in that example, Amarillo, like, would that be something that at this point you'd be interested in?
I don't know what it is about this world and these characters. Maybe it's just my love for animals that talk, but it's just intriguing and compelling. And Blacksad as a character, I'm into. Like, he's tropey as all hell, but he's also a cat. So that just doesn't need to want to keep reading. And I do think the writing is good when it sticks to what the bounds of this world seem to be. I feel like it breaks down once you start trying to make them too close to humans or put them in situations that, maybe are too deep for this world. But when it's about the pulp and it's about the noir and that stuff, aces.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, same. And Sean, it must be cool to see a cat that you're not allergic to as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is
Um,
true.
no, yeah, I'm definitely picking up a Silent Hell. Like I feel like I might just get all the Black Sads just to like have them because I really liked it. You know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's just very much my thing. Even as Sean said, like it's tropey, but like tropes exist for a reason sometimes. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I'm okay with that. If it's tropey, but the added twist is like, oh, they're all animals. You get to see really cool character designs, and the art and action are really
Yeah.
good. That's enough. It could be even tropier for all I care. And I would still read it. So yeah, I'm in it. I'm in it. If there's a new Black Sad book coming out, like I'm probably picking it up.
That's the thing, is it's not like anything else that's out there,
Yeah.
you know.
Mm.
Uh I yeah, I think it's tremendous. This is something I want to physically own forever.
Honestly, out of all the things that are out there in terms of comics, this felt more like at most like Parker,
Yeah.
Darwin Cook's
Yeah.
Parker, which
Yeah.
is unfortunately we're not getting any more of that. But that's kind of what it felt like in the terms of the style of noir. It's kind of this hard boiled, kind of a meathead, kind of sexist in a way too. Protagonist noir story.
I could go for the animated version of this.
Word.
Genuinely don't pick it up on the Switch, but the game is really good.
Yeah, I want to see what it's
The
like on the
Okay.
Switch.
the voice acting is very good. There's it's more like a visual novel than anything else, but the voice acting is really good. I heard the guy that did his voice as I was reading this, like it sticks with
Oh,
you. The twist is solid, like it's genuinely, I really recommend it.
shit. I'm going to look into that then.
Yeah, it's
I
$40 on Steam right now. I might check it out on like a Steam sale if I see it on there.
I think um I think I might dissent from that opinion. I got what I got. I got what I needed. I don't know if um this was enough to get me to read another volume. I don't think I have any other ones, but I'm sated. Like, I'm content.
Hmm.
Do you like this genre in general?
Noir, yeah, for sure,
Hmm.
100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just don't think that this. Maybe I built up an expectation for Black Set in my mind because it'd been recommended for so many years. It artistically looks like something. Artistically, give me more Juanjo, 1,000%. I want to see this and visualize this more. But the settings in the story, I don't know that it gripped me enough to want to continue even to see the art necessarily.
That's crazy.
Who knows? A listener might have to recommend the next volume.
I think you would like the next one.
When Sean said it was like in New Orleans and it was like
Yeah.
back low to the ground, I'm like, oh shit, I kind of it's
Yeah.
kind of I fuck with that, and it's the whole story, right?
I think so. I
All
feel
right.
like it's also very music heavy too.
Oh,
You're
you're
speaking
right.
his language.
Oh,
It's
maybe
Yaz too, Marco.
I
Probably.
take it all
Yeah.
back. God damn it, I take it back. You're right. They tell me, but Amarillo, that one I'll be tenuous about.
Isn't that one like a cool like road trip book?
Don't sell me on shit right now, Tyler. I need to pay my rent, okay?
Oh my.
Any other closing thoughts on Blacksad?
More, please.
It's good stuff. Pick it up.
Yeah,
Take a chance.
good recommend. I think it's a good recommend.
It's different from, your typical American comics.
It's
Like,
different than X-Men.
For an adult, it's a great place to start with something from outside of the country.
That is a phenomenal point.
Yeah.
This is very accessible for if you're a Western comics fan who really sticks close to that like I do. This is a phenomenal place to jump on. Yeah, excellent point.
And it doesn't feel like it's translated either. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Some every now and then there's a little something, but
And it's sort of like we said, like any sort of discerning adult will sort of see through the the politics of everything, but like we said, it's not offensive in any broad sense of the term.
It's not going to negatively impact your enjoyment of the story.
Yeah.
You'll see it for you'll see the cogs moving, if anything. Cool. Well, thank you guys for voting on this. As I mentioned earlier, the Patreon's the best way to do that. If you want to see the next round of books, we'll definitely have it up within the next few weeks. And if you want to help guide our conversations, join the Patreon. It's the best way to do so. If you want to do so on a more frequent basis, a weekly basis, for the Pals Pulls, again, Thursdays at 6 live on Twitch and YouTube. The main show, 10:15 a.m. EST on Saturdays, and otherwise follow us on socials, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and follow us on Twitch. It helps us out a lot. And leave an Apple review. We recently got one, and it hit the heart. So definitely leave a lot more of those.
only
Until
if it's
next
good
time. What?
Only if it's a good review.
Yeah, tell us why Tyler likes feet.
That's not even creative at this point, Marco.
Yeah,
Well,
but,
give us 5 stars about it too.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you're gonna give me 5 stars, that's fine.
Until next time.
Wait,
Kale.
It's book club. I don't do it on the book clubs.
Do you not?
I don't know. I'm not on this one.
take care, guys.